Check, check, check. Good evening, all. Woohoo! Woohoo! Welcome to the UX Night at Vinted. So, on agenda today, we're going to have 2 talks given by 3 people. You do the calculations, but it's going to make sense in the end. So, lately, all everybody wants to talk about is AI, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about AI, but we're going to talk about it in different levels. We're going to start with my dear friends and colleagues, Mantas and Giedrius. I'll introduce them in a second. And they're going to share what's happening on the ground here at Vinted, how are we thinking about it, what we know, and more importantly, what we don't know, because there's more of what we don't know than we know. And then we're going to continue on and pass over to Peter, who has a broader view of what's going on out there in the world, what are organizations going through, how design is participating in businesses, and how does AI change how design takes part in our businesses. And so, without further ado, I want to introduce 2 friends, Mantas and Giedrius. Giedrius is probably a guy who had the most titles ever. He was a product designer, a front-end engineer, what was next? Product designer again, director of design and operations, director of engineering, and now, staff design technologist. There you go. So here's for Giedrius' titles. Next to his love for craft, he is someone who has a very kind heart and someone who's great to have around and a privilege to work with. Mantas and Giedrius truly are good friends, and now they get to work together, and I get to work with them. This is truly fun. Mantas is a staff designer at Vinted, and what I want to say about Mantas, in his personal life, he's a family man, a camper van enthusiast, a photography enthusiast, and one exceptional trait that he brings on the table here is the energy to drive change, and this is something that he's going to talk about today as well. So, give a round of applause for Mantas and Giedrius.
One. UX. We need a clicker.
Now let's bring the clicker back. Okay. Oh, this is the slide that we don't have anything to say about.
There's.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. This is the slide. Of course, like any good presentation, we start with a quote. I'm not sure if you know this person. This is one of the most famous science fiction writers, William Gibson. He says that the future is already here, just not evenly distributed. What does it actually mean? It means that change is happening not equally, not at the same time, just because money, culture, any other aspects, bottlenecks. We will talk about bottlenecks today. We think about the same through the lens of AI at Vinted as well. And then when we look at all the blog posts on x.com, tweets and stuff about 10x designers, 100x engineers, I don't know, like the first question is, what do they drink or smoke or whatever?
AI pills.
Yeah. And then the question is like, how do we bring this at Vinted? Obviously everyone, especially Jonas, wants to bring some stuff here. So the question is, how we bring this feature here to Vinted or maybe to our own lives.
Yeah. So me, Mantas, and Giedrius been having conversation about AI for the last year or 2. I'm looking at it more from practical, political, maybe perspective more. Giedrius from technology and capabilities. We have our agreements, we have disagreements, we have some conclusions. We also put some things into practice, and today we would like to share what we went through.
Yeah, obviously the question is why AI? Why do we need another AI talk? I think the important factor is that AI, just like any other technology that comes in waves, it's a good opportunity for company, for you as a designer or any other industry or role that you work to be on competitive edge. And the similar things applied when we started building apps, cloud technologies, e-commerce, payments, whatever. Vinted has most of these things, but we never were like the first ones. But we were quick to catch up and follow. And I think this is, by the way, this is from one of the Facebook books that they built, internally just communication book. And I think this rule quite applies right now because what it says that if you are quick, you can, not only start winning the race, but actually get a get start to the next one. Yeah, so we think that this is a good opportunity both for the company, but also for individuals to gain some leverage, if you are competing or if you want, high salaries and stuff. I think it's really good opportunity to get ahead. And then the question is, how the heck we measure the AI impact? I think this is second question. What is the AI, and then how we measure the impact? And I think there is no easy answer today, but there is reason for that. Because when you look at the system level or through the lens of theory of constraints, this is, I don't want to go into details what it says, but essentially what it says that if you have a system, the system output is equal to its biggest bottleneck. So when you look at this, let's imagine you have a water hose, and then probably the amount of water you get out of it is the exact space that you have in your hose, and it doesn't matter how much you turn up the water stream, it's still super small. So just to reflect this, if you have a bottleneck, it doesn't matter how many code lines or PRs you are creating, you are stuck with plan work. So through this lens, I think our presentation will focus on what kind of bottlenecks we see already at Vinted, what kind of bottlenecks we already solved, and maybe some of these things you could apply to your own company.
Okay, we won't talk about hosts anymore, but we're going to talk about bottlenecks. So, as Giedrius mentioned, technology comes in waves. So at Vinted, we also try to look for opportunities. And as a first wave, we, about a year ago, introduced during our function weeks workshops. We started having conversations, inviting some Mantas, whom everyone knows a lot. And all these exercises sparked some breakthroughs, though what we understood is that those breakthroughs are happening mainly in the areas which are about generating content. So content, localizations, research, visual UI had the biggest breakthroughs already in that field, but where we were not making any big breakthroughs still was the product design. I'm not sure who knows who that icon? You don't? Okay.
I said to you that nobody knows what the heck is this.
It's a swamp. So it means pull request. So designers building product directly, in a code, doing pull request. Also next to this, experimentation comes in, and you have to do also A/B testing everything. So this is what we felt is our swamp that we wanted to cross. You must also understand, and we all understand, that it's not just technical limitations, as you have to make it into a cross-platform environment, also aligned with cross-functions, where people are involved. Also, there's organizational norms which formed last 10 years, and people are thinking that we should continue the way we do. Still, a lot of people think differently. So what we understood is that you can't just ask people to go and use AI. You can't say, use AI without trying it yourself. So we understood that you have to walk this swamp yourself. And today we're gonna be discussing about that. So these are the things we're gonna present. We're gonna talk about conditions that needs to happen, about the practice we had, about people and how to bring them along, and what's coming next for Vinted.
Yeah, we'll start with the conditions.
And you can't start with conditions because so the point which I'm making is before even starting something, we have to prepare the ground, and Giedrius is a man to do it. I have to say this, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing, I think driving change in an organization, especially as big as Vinted, is super difficult. Yeah, and then we put AI on top, and it gets even more complex because it changes at least for me, it changes every week. So then the question is, what do you do? And I think the first thing is sponsorship, and then bringing the right people into right positions. Those people that have some sort of knowledge, maybe not a lot of knowledge, but then definitely a lot of curiosity and some sort of idea what the heck we are doing. So we started with that. We bought, I think, several people. I definitely know that we bought some engineers, we bought PM, and then I was part of this setup as well. And this is the first step, but then the next step, I think, is setting the vision, what the heck we are aiming for. So this is where we started. We said that designing and coding actually should mean one thing. We don't use word coding, we say building, because nobody codes these days anymore. But then at the end of the day, we feel that designing and building should become one thing, synonymous. We envisioned this, we had this fancy vision program, and we are aiming at it. And this was the first step. So rolling a little back, on the tooling itself, Mantas already mentioned that a year ago, more than a year ago, we tried some of these tools. We tried both Figma Make. I think even a year ago, in concept of AI, it feels like very long time ago. This was too early. Like most of the tools didn't have features, flexibility, models weren't that good. We fell back to Figma, but then we tried again. In February, we tried Lovable. We invested more into it. We brought it back both to designers and PMs, and it stuck. And there is a reason why it stuck, because the barrier is super low. The models are already good. We already started, some of the designers are not using Figma anymore. I think Mantas one of them. It's super expensive. Like Lovable, Jonas don't want to pay for it. But then one thing clicked. The moment I think it clicked when we understood that whatever Lovable is producing, it's producing code that we can reuse. We can use whatever we built outside of Lovable. We can build, take what Lovable has and maybe produce our own stuff. So we started exploring with Claude, Cursor, the tools that engineers use these days. I'm not sure, if they will use Cursor anymore after Elon bought it today, I think. We will see. Yeah, but these are super advanced tools. You can do whatever you want. The biggest challenge is that you need to spend a lot of time setting it up. Yeah, but then we thought, what would happen if we combine Claude and Cursor or maybe Lovable? So we started building our own tool. It started as an experiment. It's still an experiment phase, but essentially what it does, it combines both of the worlds. It means that we can build prototype, we can build the real thing, we can create PRs in the production. It doesn't have set up environment. It's super low entry. It's super easy to use.
I tried, it works on web.
Yeah. But then, you know, you have great tools, you have great models. None of this matters if you don't have foundations. And especially AI ready for foundations. And you know, we started with design system. Our design system was never built to be used by AI. We had to make it AI ready, so we invested some time building templates as you do in Figma. This is a template made by Rokas for Lovable. As you can see, this is not fake content, it's my real content from Vinted. So it's fully functional prototype that I can write a message, do whatever hell I want. Yeah, we started centralizing knowledge, whatever, you know, scattered across documents and files, harnessing AIs to actually make higher quality outputs, scale CVALs, a lot of stuff. And obviously, you know, none of the design systems, or at least the ones that I know, are not great. And totally always need some investment. So we figured, what the heck, maybe AI can do it. So we started thinking, what would it mean to make a design system that would be AI first? And these are the screens that AI generated. None of these are designer made. So AI can produce good stuff, but we need to invest a lot of resources. And we already started thinking that maybe we should use open source design system just to make it more easy for AI.
It's already taught on many different design systems. So an example, Shatien.
Yeah. And the idea is that if AI can build the screens, it should probably be able to build new components and write new guidelines.
Okay, so while Giedrius was working on foundation and tools, I had some time, Jonas allowed, and I decided to do something with that time, so I decided to put things into practice. So whenever someone asks me how we're gonna do it, I always say we're gonna apply the doing method. It means that instead of going to create workshops, writing documents, asking for permission, getting alignment and planning and so on, you just go and do it. So if we talk about AI tools, as a barriers, I would say the lowest as it ever was to start. The coding part is, let's say, covered, front end at least. There is no excuse not to start. And in general, if we talk about tools, I'm gonna be honest, I always thought that tools are not that as important, and the problems usually are not in the tools, but in the people, in the agency, in the urge to make something, make your own decisions, being proactive, those things which I think were always a bottlenecks to push through. And to build up on top, I presented previously in my previous presentation about fundamentals of being a designer. One of those was curiosity. I still believe in that curiosity is engine for this to work, and only limitation is imagination and tokens. So to wrap this up, let me. So what I mentioned before, you can't just say use AI without doing it yourself. So I decided to do a bit of exploration. And first exploration started with my problems. So as a staff product designer, my work is to just, think about the future, but also understand the past and talk with many different people and align and so on. So it's usually you make something, then you move that information to some place. In that place, people leave comments, then you work, and then you bring it to meeting, then you get some answers, then you bring it somewhere else, and you just kind of working as this conveyor manager would brings things from one place to another. And it took me so much time for myself that I decided I need to do something, and then this smart fellow called Karpati suggested to create your own wiki, like some kind of second brain. It was a weekend, I had some time, and I thought that it's not just only for my work, but myself. So I copied what he wrote here, pasted it into a Claude, I download Obsidian. Obsidian is just like Finder, but just looks nicer. And I set up my second brain. It took me about 20 minutes to set the base, and then I started exploring what else I can make. So I set it up that all the inputs, whichever I have, it had access to my Google Docs, it had access to my Google Meetings. I asked it to, whenever it sees in calendar that I have a meeting, go there, check my transcriptions, take all the information there, store it. Anytime I have any notes, take them, store it. If I'm sharing Google Docs, there's comments and so on, go read through them, store it. And it worked like a kind of cataloging system. Claude was responsible to do it, it orchestrated, and then all this system is just a vault of text files. It's just in a Finder, stored locally, nowhere else. I have it on myself. And this is how I built my second brain, which I still use. It helps me plan my days. It helps me prepare meetings with Jonas. It helps meetings with Giedrius, shares that I forgot something, and sometimes even do prep work. In general, I would say I dumped about 60% of my thinking, which I had to do, to this, and now I can focus more on talking about AI. So in parallel, while I was still working and improving this second brain, I got an ask from Adam that we need to create some concepts for undisclosed things, which kind of pushed me that I had to create some future versions of Vinted. I'm trying to be as discreet as possible, with few variations of those futures. So I started with Lovable. I used it for 2 or 3 hours and understood that the ceiling is there. I can't use it because not just because you can't build anything with that, you can, but for me, as I wanted to make my tools more efficient, shape them around my own needs, install skills, set the rules, just have more control on how these agents work, I decided to switch and try Cursor. So Cursor was a love story that lasted short, but I kept through all this process mainly on Cursor. Later on, because I understood that I want to use second brain just straight away in one flow, I moved to Claude. Took me 15 minutes, not a hard thing to do. So I started with Lovable, good. So yeah, I was able to build 3 distinct architectures for Vinted, fully clickable prototypes with much more complex information architecture that we currently have in, let's say, a few weeks. It took, in that few weeks, I also did research and a lot of sharing with stakeholders, bringing those inputs back and so on. But all this process really helped me to make this, I would say, 10x quicker. It's much faster than just, get input, then go to Figma, and you need to update in 10 places, same things. Let's go to, yeah, so this is a new workflow that I got into. So it kind of represents a bit our design process. So in the first stage, understand what it was doing, my second brain collecting all the inputs. I was able to have synthesis with it and start thinking about a plan, even for research or creating first prototypes, whichever stage I needed. I was using my Wikipedia. Then all this became more into the prompt to build. That prompt was in a plan stage. I'm going to talk about that a bit later. Don't going to go there. And yeah, and finally, I used Vercel to deploy. Just share, collect the inputs again, and just rinse and repeat. What it brought me is that every time I was doing it again and again, I was doing it more faster, more efficient, to getting better results, because I was setting it up to not repeat same mistakes, and it just had more context each time to repeat again. And these are few of the things I wanted to share after those few weeks, which I kind of made, which helped me to, which kind of outcomes I got from them. So first things first, even to deploy anything or something, you need to have a GitHub. Well, to share something with someone, you have to have GitHub, and you have to place to deploy. As I'm not an engineer, I don't have access to Vinted GitHub, nor I have a place where I can deploy something. So to do that, I just use my learning budget to get...
Sorry, Jonas.
Sorry,
Jonas
Jonas.
is not here.
Yeah, but learning budget to get that access. So the learning, I would say that if you need something, you go and escalate and you get it from IT. I needed tokens for designers. It was really low. I went to IT and said, this is what I'm building. I need the most tokens you can get me. I showed my usage. I was #1 in the first week. And they gave me now some unlimited.
This is a joke, but at some point in time, I looked at the most tokens used across the company. So it was, I think, Mantas and me, like beating all the engineers, and you know.
I don't know what we're doing really. So another thing is find your own ways of working. So it's try your own models, look for what works for you. For example, I learned that just while you're planning, creating a prompt, just ask for text wireframes, Giedrius exploring with HTML wireframes. Before even build, you can have almost all layout and you can work with it. It saves a lot of time and tokens. Another thing, the third one is pace yourself. I had these little small burn downs, not because I was pushed, they just happened naturally, that you are constantly working 3-5 different agents on 3-5 different contexts. So it's very easy to just, after 3 or 4 days, just feel like you are done, like you fried your brain. So pace yourself, learn to stop, learn to go watch some concert while agents are working, or go for a walk, but just still set the agents to work. But just pace yourself, and lastly, document everything, and not just document yourself, what you're learning so you can use it, but also set up the agents to document it for yourselves to, I don't know, set up what you like, what you don't like, so they won't repeat those mistakes again. And after those 2 explorations, I still felt that I still haven't passed the swamp. So what I was talking before about, you know, how can we get to designers, you know, working on a code, doing pull requests, doing A/B testing. So to get there, I just talked to one engineer who was working on an AI mission, and he said, like, hey, maybe you want on Fridays to try, you know, do some pull requests and just change things in code in the marketplace. So we set up our rules, how we do it. We already did 5. We had some wins, we have some losses. I'm going to explain a bit more about them, but the point is that we tried really simple, no experimentation. Third one could have been success, but whatever. 4th, we didn't pass an experimentation. 5th one worked. We still wait for results, so I think it's going to be impactful. So the point I'm making is you have to look for proofs.
Oh.
No, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, you need to look for proofs so you can share, you can also motivate yourself to push further, but I was just observing, so not only us doing PR Fridays, but also Agne last week presenting how she does not only to design depth, but already to the iterations, doing full PRs for internal projects. Paulus, who is also here, he had no access to resource of data scientists to do analysis. So he shared how he set up MCP to get analysis, and then I know it became experiments already. And finally, Giedrius and Principal PM making a genetic experience of Vinted, how it would look. Maybe someday we'll see it. Initially thought it's going to take up until a year to finish. We did it in a month or something. So all of these kind of translates into proofs that everyone, if we want, we can do it. Mm-hmm. Okay, and yes, it's a bit longer one, but it's the most important one. So successes are okay, but I would say even more important ones are uncovering those bottlenecks. So anytime I mentioned before, you have to document everything, just write down, put it into your wiki to not forget, but just have them so that later on you just go and start talking to people who could help you solve this. So this helped, to uncover many bottlenecks. And this is important because later on others will try to go through the same paths. So if you will solve them for them, they will be able to go even more further. And lastly, it's very much important, big learning from that practice part was that we understood where we are. And this is kind of agreement we currently have with engineering and other functions that we agreed that we can reach tier 1 to do pull requests. So maintenance, something like design depth, bugs, hygiene. We can already do those and work with them. And all other stuff is what Giedrius is also working on prototyping environment, which is needed for handoff of the things. Engineers liked it because we understood that we will cover not too much, we're not that crazy, but at the same time we'll cover something we don't like to work that much and we can focus on engineering. I think still consider this is a win because it opens us a door. Technology gonna move on and we will maybe someday we're gonna start with tier 2.
Yeah, so Mantas showed some principles that he used to bring practice on his own, but at the end of the day, like you want to involve other people as well. So the change is actually happening. It doesn't happen in isolated one spot. It happens across the whole organization. First principle that we use, and I think it's super important to understand that you can be bottleneck as well in your company. So to solve this, we agree that the way to move forward is to democratize yourself. What does it mean? It means that whatever you are doing, you should be exposing the knowledge and tooling to AI or other people. And this applicable for design as well. So doesn't matter what you do, even if you are designing, we should shift towards the thinking that anyone can design, including engineering, including PMs. This sounded crazy in the beginning, but I think once you shift the thinking from we make high quality designs to we ensure that high quality designs are being made, then you are owning the infrastructure and then the outcome rather than, the tasks that are being done across the, different places. And this principle is applied across engineering, product, data, actually anyone. So if you look at these, Elena, our general counsel, wrote that she already uses Lovable to build stuff. And then we have content design that, writes skills to generate content. And then we have, DSA that is already working on experiment skills, so new experiments can be created automatically.
I think it's engineering, but together with.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so quickly on this. So you may think that you're most progressive person and you're most smart and genius because you're just doing so many crazy stuff with AI, but usually you're not the only one. So I would really recommend to understand that change is usually not happening in a single place. So just go and talk to people, learn what they are working on, understand. Especially, I would start with engineering, understand how they see this future, and you as a designer have a biggest, skill and capacity and this is in our profession to align people. So if you see that already people are thinking about some kind of future view, just try to align people to see the same at least direction to go, so you can optimize the work. When we started working with engineering, with DSA and so on, we started those bottlenecks, started to at least uncover even faster. We haven't solved everything, but still it helps when bigger group from different functions see the same way. And another part is that not everyone will be looking forward straight away at the same time as you, and that's fine. But some people may live a few years ahead, and some want to stay in the present. But what I learned is that it's not about, I want to drink my AI pills and just be right about the future. It's also about spreading those AI pills so everyone can get in that psychosis mode and be a bit crazy. So what I learned is, just bring those skeptics, laggards along by not just sharing them the documents and so on. Just for example, I'm not saying Jeff is amazing, I love him, but one of the ways for Jeff to know what kind of struggles and bottlenecks we are experiencing ourselves, I invited him to this fifth one, which was successful, by the way, to be a driver on that PR Friday. So he himself did a full flow of creating PR, doing experiment. He came back to experimentation team with a list of improvements that he asked already to do to enable a lot of API stuff, not read-only stuff, but and so on. I'm not going to go into details, but this helped, to feed people some more AI pills in this case. So once again, I'm really encouraged not just write documents, but involve people along to try themselves, because then they will learn that everything is possible. Not everything, but more than they think.
And they will use the doing method.
Exactly. Doing is now certainly easier method. Yeah. Last part, and this was very redacted by leadership. So I had like 3 slides around this, but so I think it started, change starts with leadership, but no, I changed it to shared responsibility. So I think that change happens both sides, top down and bottom up. And we can't expect individual contributors to do the change if your leads haven't touched the tools. So I question how can leadership, those who set growth goals, those who hire, those who evaluate people without trying out those AI tools, can evaluate individual contributors. And I think that's important thing to understand, so we could decrease those gaps. We don't have any of those problems. I'm just sharing general stuff. And if someone asks me to how can that leadership bring those people into this new future, I will always answer yes, doing the doing method. Also, just to come back, if you have time, I really recommend to check Grace Hopper. She was the one who made programming from numbers to words, where people were also, how are we gonna program now? Our jobs are taken. And she did a lot of crazy stuff in her years. And this is an amazing presentation about how people should think more about the future and how leadership should think more about the future, not just managing, but bringing people into that future together.
I need to remember what I had to say. Oh, I remember. So yeah, so we touched a little bit of the bottlenecks that we experienced. Some of them were solved, not all of them. We saw the glimpse of the future we could have. Yeah, but it's not there yet. Like we acknowledge that coding and designing is not one thing. And of course, AI during these 3-4 months moved. So now we need to, expand our vision to some degree. So then the question is, where do we go next? What kind of impact we need to make this change possible? And it starts with 3 things. So one is, AI as a peer. So when you think about the democratization, the first thing that comes to mind that, if PM is designing or engineer is designing, then you want to have, you still want to produce high quality outputs. And then we want to bring AI as a peer that would enable, regardless who you are, even if you are a designer, to make changes that are high quality, impactful, obviously, going to the production. So we started building skills, and these skills are currently working as a guidance provider to make better decisions, give feedback, complete some of the tasks. We don't intend to replace all designers. I think the goal is to make these designers much more capable and to do much more impactful work. And then at the end of the day, we want to get to the level where this AI assistant can actually support not only designers. Maybe it will be very good peer to PMs and engineers and whomever. The second thing, I think it's super important as well. So, when you think about Mantas' case, his knowledge is in his computer, it's local, it's, you have Mantas' knowledge, you have Giedrius' knowledge, but it's not collective knowledge. And when you work in the company, you have this collective knowledge then that is shared, expanded as organization grows and progresses. So we are already experimenting with the idea of shared memory bank where additional people can plug in their agents. And their idea is that eventually AI should learn from everyone, get better from anyone, and whomever is working on specific task, it can get and learn and reuse its learnings. And then the last thing, you can do crazy stuff with AI, but product development is team sport. And certainly when you work in a team, you are producing lasting things. So the question is how you bring the whole team to the AI. And then, when you think about what does it mean, it means that I don't want to prompt the AI. I want that my team would be able to prompt the AI. I want my team to design stuff, and I want my team to ship stuff. So we need tools that let people work together. And this is where we are actually looking as well, because at the end of the day, the biggest bottleneck is the alignment, and then communication, and then collaboration. Okay, so we reached the end. To summarize, so
of the swamp.
Yeah, future is here. It's here. At Vinted, we see some glimpses of it. AI enables you to do more. There is this 10x, 100x, whatever you call it, and it will get better. I think this is the message. But then the biggest challenge that you face is the ones that you need to solve, these bottlenecks. You need to identify them and tackle. And this applies to the company that you work or your individual self. And this is the biggest opportunity for you right now.
And finally, it takes resilience, stubborn optimism, some failures, learnings, a bit of healthy psychosis, AI pills, and someone to share the journey with to reach the frontiers.
Wow, thank you, Giedrius and Mantas. Let's take a couple minutes for questions. Hands up if you have one.
Yes. Should we give the microphone?
You can. Yeah. Well, I can bring yours. We have 3 mics in total.
Armandas?
Appreciate. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to see fellow designers going into code, but I guess there's an elephant in the room. What about engineers going to design, aka what about the front-end engineers? What they do?
I can answer this. I actually was in AI mission team workshop, AI engineering mission team, and I was presenting similar thing, and I said, oh, we'll democratize design so you can design stuff, and they said, why do we need to, I don't want to design anything. So I think we go back to the same message. If you want, you should be able to do it. It doesn't mean that everyone will design or everyone will code. I think the capability of doing this like enables really big opportunities. And I think the most impactful thing from this workshop was that the AI engineering mission team wrote in their goal. It's written exactly how, like I will say it. It's written, anyone in the team should be capable of shipping changes to Vinted members. So this is, I think, the goal.
Hello. So in the diagram you had showing that ideas are flowing and it's quite a big part of the hose. And then you have a bottleneck, and then you have development time and stuff like that. And if we remove the bottleneck in executing ideas, and now we can execute more ideas, how can we ensure that the good ideas are being executed and not just a bunch of mediocre ideas now have free pass and they can be developed and executed?
I think we should look at it more from a startup perspective. We currently haven't yet reached where we can invest in the quality. Well, we can as much as possible during skills, but let's understand that we're just on a genesis of things. So it means that we're pioneering. It's not about, worldly mapping has different, where it has pioneers, settlers, town planners. We are currently in the first stages. So our goal is just to show it's possible. It can not be most best quality and so on, but we're learning fast. So to answer a question, maybe not directly, but I would say time is needed. We need to practice more to get better on this, but same happens anytime things change. There's a bit of disruption happening.
I think I can adapt. So, for example, the skills that we built, we built a couple of them that cover the beginning of discovery phase. So I think I heard some comments, I think both from Mantas and then our principal PM, like both of them said that skills set the bar for what we call senior PM. So regardless what kind of level you are operating, you can use these skills to essentially operate at senior PM. And I think this is the tools that we will use to actually set the bar even higher than we do it today. Like we don't ship everything great even today.
Just to finish with that, Figma auto layouting been there for a few years. I'm still asking and showing designers that we still don't use it properly. So we could still push them, to learn auto layouting, or we could just have a skill. So it's a bit different way to go, different one, but I think we can get to better outcomes at the end.
Hey, thank you for presentation. I was thinking about the bottlenecks you mentioned. Let's assume we are all, doing design and code and so on, all the companies, everyone. And you come up with the solution to a problem which was actually producing more. Maybe it's not an actual bottleneck. And you mentioned that bottleneck is communication or alignment, and it's still there, right? We're not addressing that. At least you tried to. My question, so where is the magic to make everyone aligned? Is it like design MCP server that everyone uses, or those skills, a package shared? Any ideas there? That's the philosophical one, and I have a second question.
Okay, so let me answer the philosophical, and then practical ones goes to this guy. In short, the process changes in a way that, and I experienced this with working with PM. Like technically, it's easier to work with AI than PM, even though we are two of us. But the reason why it's that, because we don't have shared tools. And it means if I'm sitting together, and I can say Slack channel, and then PM sits in the same Slack channel, then we prompt in the same channel, then AI gets the whole context. Whatever I'm saying, he gets this thing. Whatever he's saying is shared with me. We build in the same prototype. We are shipping the same thing. So when you think about the tools, like most of it can be not entirely sorted because people are, still humans. But some of the things are constrained by the tools. And this is why I'm saying that better tools will produce less bottlenecks, just because we were never prepared for this AI stuff.
Just to sum it up, also think that you could take approach of the process improvements, like now with current things, and just look for ways, who can do it, what should be our frameworks, principles, then go roll out, preach it, and you have to think this way and so on. And instead, you can also think through tooling perspective, which can also achieve the same things through tools. So the same skills, MCP, whatever knowledge you have and so on, if you solve this, this will affect the processes. This can, Jonas, when you started, you introduced purpose-led skills. We still follow them. It's purpose, function, form. We could have worked on this and rolled out. We decided to create skills for that. You know, it stops users to think on a purpose. It stops when you think about function, and then it provides proper form with proper auto layout, which we still haven't learned, but it helps affect the process and affect the quality also. So it's just different way how you can achieve similar outcomes.
Okay, thanks, Hannah. Second question. So you were showing about the prototypes, and you still like tier 2, 3. I was just wondering, do you think the disposable prototypes that everyone uses and then throws away is the way, or maybe some master prototype that everyone contributes and, you know, to keep everything on the same page? Yeah, thank you.
So at least for now, we have two concepts. We had a lot of debate with Mantas. Do we want to go to production and then forget the prototypes, or do we want to have prototypes and then production? So we tackled this from both sides. The reason why we have both sides, because when you are exploring big change, it doesn't make sense to do it in production. And then we are doing small change, then do it in production. And this is the reason why we have two things. And the good stuff, and I think we will get there probably maybe in Q3, we could produce prototypes, realistic prototypes, the ones that we already built manually from the production. Like essentially, we will generate prototype from the production code. And this, it will become master thing. You can make it disposable, doesn't matter.
All right, let's take one last question.
Thanks. I feel a bit like a trespasser as I'm a PM, sorry. But maybe a bit of a practical question in terms of how to speak to leadership, because you said that it should come from bottom up as well as from the top down. And I work in quite a large organization. They are screaming at us, AI, AI, let's do AI, woohoo. But then in reality, we're restricted by a risk team from every single side. We're restricted in terms of tooling, what it can access. So I would love to build the wiki type of thing for me, but it's like nearly impossible due to the governments and risk and whatever. Any ideas how to talk?
You can also apply to Vinted. Or, or you could, the same thing I'm going to repeat again, doing thing. You know, you push through, look for access, get access, do on your personal learning budgets, whatever it is. And in general, how to work with leadership. Well, you can keep them as skeptics, laggards, and try to also involve them together with them to build stuff. It's a task, really. You have to have, I'm a staff, that this is my bread and butter, whatever. I have to have those skills to sell, to align people, to sell the vision, to involve and push through. That's kind of thing. Maybe you need a staff also person in that perspective. But I would consider first one.
Does that answer the question? I can maybe add up. I think I'm not sure what kind of angle you are aiming. You know, if it's security reasons, for example, then most of the solvable. Like the first thing I would do, probably I would ask security to figure out this stuff. Yeah, like I mean, there are models that are local, so you can run it in your computer and nothing leaked. You have models that like remove stuff that is not something you want to share. So there are multiple things, and I think, you know, if security doesn't know this stuff, then probably you need to give some pills, AI pills, to the security.
Thank you very, very much. This was excellent, guys. I'm sure Giedrius and Mantas will stick around, so you get to ask questions if you have them afterwards. And now, can we switch the next slide, please? All right. So now, I am absolutely thrilled to introduce Peter Merholz to you. So, right. So, you must know Peter's writing, a book he co-wrote with Kirsten Skinner, Org Design for Design Orgs. If you're leading a team, I bet you at least know about it or read it. Peter runs a podcast I personally enjoy called Finding Our Way. Lots of good guests, exciting conversations, but in principle, to me personally, I had the privilege to work with Peter in many ways, but starting with the book, which was a source of clarity when I was in need. Starting early in my role, had no idea what should I do now, and that book was such a needed resource for me. And then later, Peter agreed to coach when problems became larger and more complex. So Peter's thinking, at least to me personally, has been a source of clarity. And so now that yet again we really need clarity again, I really hope that we'll get some. Not to set the expectations too high, but folks, please welcome Peter Merholz.
Hi, everybody. I'm Peter. I live in Oakland, California. You might be wondering why I'm in Vilnius. I'm on holiday. This is what I do when I'm on holiday. I drag my son. If you saw a tall 17-year-old here, that's my son, Jules. I drag him to these things because I like to meet local design and UX communities around the world when I travel. It's a disease of mine. I also like to create an opportunity for these communities to come together. I think right now, I mean, I've been doing this for a few years. When we were last in Europe 4 years ago, I did something similar. But given all the confusion and chaos going on in our industry and the world, largely caused by my country, I won't apologize. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, given all the confusion and chaos going on, community is essential. And connection and talking to one another and figuring this out together. And so being a catalyst to bring people together is something I enjoy. Plus, even though it's a little sunny outside right now, I'm sure you're happy to get the heck out of that weather, which was pretty miserable today. What I'm going to share is a collection of thoughts. It comes from a bunch of different presentations I gave before going out on holiday. I vaguely remember what I wrote. But I'm sure it'll go fine. But it doesn't have like a clear arc. So just come join me on a journey we'll call this a thought wander around matters of design and AI and leadership. Something though that was interesting to me, using the word conditions, and I tend to focus a lot on design leadership. So there's kind of a design leadership angle here. I know not everybody in the room is a leader, but I think you'll find it all applicable. I was intrigued how the prior presentation used the word conditions. And I think that's a theme that we're seeing, is that right now, when you're dealing with these new tools and technologies, I think folks are recognizing that they amplify and accelerate whatever your current state is. And so you need to set those conditions and then get those amplified and accelerated. If you're not intentional about how those conditions are set, you get the chaos that I think is affecting a lot of organizations. I'm going to start with just a description of design, because not everybody comes at it from the same place, but I also think many of us have trouble understanding why the people that we work with don't understand us. And I've done a little bit of analysis on this. I actually think design as a function is unique. If you think about it, so I'm an organization designer. So I tend to think of design not only as a craft or practice or process, but as a department in a company that has a responsibility to deliver some type of value. And when you think of design in that way, it's not like any other function. It's not like marketing or sales or product management or engineering. And it's just unique for a few reasons. It's new at the executive level. Jonas is a VP of design, but you know, we've had VPs of design for maybe 20 years or so, whereas we've had other VPs of other functions for much longer. So it's new at that executive level, having that kind of mandate. But what that means is we're less mature. We're still figuring out what we are as a function. There were already a bunch of people at that executive table that we're now like elbowing in on and saying, hey, we're here. And they're like, oh, we were doing fine without you. You can, you know, do we really need design at this level? Design is organizationally strange. We're creative, emotive, ambiguous, human-centered, a whole set of kind of values that are often not shared by other functions. We're resistant to easy measurement, right? It's hard to identify OKRs specific to design, if anyone's ever done that. I'm not going to get into that in detail here, but we can talk about that if that's something you're challenged with. I think about that a lot. And design's value is primarily in facilitating or multiplying the work of other teams, right? Because we don't usually deliver directly, right? We're partnering with product and engineering. We're partnering with marketing. We're partnering even, if you're doing service design, you might be partnering with HR or operations, right? We're not delivering the value directly. We're helping other teams better deliver their value. That's what I mean by facilitate and multiply. And then on us is the fact that design is a poorly defined function. It can mean anything from the smallest UI details to a 5-year omni-channel product strategy and everything in between. And maybe it incorporates other functions within it, research, content, accessibility, which aren't design. Are they design? You know, other functions don't tend to have like subsidiaries within them that are so different in the way that design does. And then there's things like design thinking and these types of practices. Is design responsible for that? My point with this last one is like people often don't know what to come to design for, right? And all the things that we know it could be delivering, it can be hard to communicate. So we have this mess already as designers that we face in trying to do good work in organizations. And then we're now operating under unparalleled intensity and uncertainty. So Jonas mentioned the podcast Finding Our Way that I co-host with Jesse James Garrett. We had as a guest Paul Ford. Funny episode, he's a funny man. And one of the things he said is how essentially AI has been the worst technology rollout in history, right? This thing just kind of dumped on all of our desks. There's no coordination, no organization, no plan. Everybody's just kind of run ragged trying to figure out how to make sense of it. But also, we've all been mandated to use it N% of our time and to spend a bunch of tokens. And like, it's nonsense how poorly it's been released. There was research done by the Designer Fund. They're a venture capital firm that focuses on design-backed startups. And they did research on AI and design. You can download the report. It's the state of AI design or something. If you type in a bunch of those words, you'll find it. And in the report, there were a lot of findings, but this one stuck out for me. Last year, designers used, on average, 3 AI tools. In 2026, that same group was now using 7. And they're probably all using a different 7. You know, we know that there's dozens of tools out there. But if every designer is having to figure out 7 new tools that weren't in their toolkit, that all do something different but kind of similar, and it might be different from the other tools that other people are using, and we heard in the prior presentation all these different tools, and no one is organizing or coordinating this. Every designer is expected to figure it out on their own. And there's no go-to stack, right? This is the idea, like we don't know what tools in what order is like the best way to do it. So it's creating this anxiety, frustration, isolation among designers. With all these tools, I'm sure there's 15 more I could have added since I wrote this 3 weeks ago. There's all these things that you can do with these tools that we're now expecting designers to be essentially committing to prod. Is this a thing? Do I have to do that now? Designers are trying to figure out, like, what is their role? How do I do my work, right? And there's been very little context set within most organizations to enable this. So this is the challenge that every company's facing. If you're facing it, if you're feeling it, you're not alone. Don't assume that just because on LinkedIn every other person seems to have confidence in whatever solution they're putting out there. Most of them are, I don't want to say lying, but I'm sure they're fudging. One of the companies that I did a leadership, I did a presentation for their internal leadership team was General Motors. And as part of the process, I spoke with Alex. He's a VP of design there. They have a lot of design leaders. But as part of the prep, I spoke with him. And he shared this story. One of the problems that we found is PMs not clearly communicating requirements. But then he was mentioning a good case. In this case, the PMs used AI and created some very simple designs. The designers just loved it and ran with it. Made us all better. PMs were faster and better at using a language that designers understood. The designer did what they do best, which is design. Oh, sorry. The PM's intent was never, I'm going to be the designer. The intent was, let me communicate better what I'm thinking. And the designer understood it and ran with it, right? And this was meant to address a concern that I hear from designers, which is like, well, now that PMs have these tools, are they just going to start doing design? And in some organizations, they are. What he was pointing out was, in this one team at GM, other teams were not as kind of happy in their application, that there was a very positive use of the PMs using these tools to communicate a thought, but that they recognized this wasn't the design. The designer needed to do something with this to make it workable. And it allowed them to come together better. And what that kind of identified for me, a few lessons. It's not about the tools. We get very focused on tools. There's a lot of tools. But as I think we heard also in the prior session, that's like not even table stakes. Like, don't stress on the tools. You want to have clear intent, right? A group of people know what they're supposed to do. You need to lower that ego so that when PMs are doing some design or designers are doing some PRDs or code or whatever, people don't get territorial, and have a shared goal. AI amplifies what's already there. Something else I did, or I've been taking part in, is I'm calling it a listening tour. I'm not going on tour, I sit at home, but I've been talking to design executives around the world, trying to get a sense of kind of how what's going on in the moment. And this is a theme that just resonated over and over again. AI amplifies what's already there. So if you have a trusting group, AI is going to make that trusting group work much better, faster, et cetera, towards good goals. But if you have a fearful group or an anxious group, AI is going to amplify that. So you need to set conditions, kind of like we heard in that prior presentation. And for me, a lot of that is about leadership fundamentals. We're not going to dive into a leadership fundamentals course. We don't have time. But there are basics, and I'll touch on some of them as I go forward. But the basic theme is, as designers, especially as design leaders, we tend to think about directing work. Our job is to kind of make sure that good goes out into the world, or telling people what to do. And it's less about directing work than creating conditions. Your value has been in your ability to deliver quality work. Now it's in the ability to shape space and systems that repeatedly and sustainably produce quality work. We're becoming gardeners, thus that image. Architects. We're not necessarily having to be the kind of hand-to-keyboard deliverer of work. We're creating the systems that allow good work to thrive. So a few steps on the way there. The first is around team. This is Karen Hansen. She was a guest on our podcast when she was the Chief Design Officer at Chase Bank in the United States, where she grew a team from 350 to over 1,000 UXers, one team. That's insane. But on our podcast, what she shared, the first job as a design leader coming in is to create a strong, robust team, because if your team isn't robust, there's no way you can push for change. And I'm finding teams and roles and all that are becoming a real interesting topic right now because of AI. This is Z, is how she goes, Chengyang Zheng. She's been writing a lot about her experience at Cloudflare, where she was the head of design operations, taking a team, leading them from a story similar to what we just heard, kind of a Figma team, and that is now using these AI tools primarily to do their work, and they're frankly not in Figma much anymore. And she shared a bunch of lessons that came out of that, and she has a Substack that you could subscribe to kind of follow her journey. But there's a lot that she's written about, but I'm going to focus on this shift from roles to skills. Because I think something that we're having to come to grips with is that roles, designer, product manager, design technologist, engineer, whatever, those are becoming less important in this moment. So what's dying? That's not my job as a defense. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with designers who were frustrated that their product manager wasn't doing their job, but refused to do what they knew needed to be done because that's not my job. That's somebody else's job, right? It's not a defense. There's role-based tool ownership. You know, her experience was that once they got through this process, marketers and PMs were in Figma more than designers, right? And so this association of tools and roles is falling away. What's transforming? Job titles. As an org designer, I find this very interesting. From designer to builder, from PM to product person. Career ladders, I think a lot about professional development and how people grow in their roles. And when she talks about skill-based, not role-based, that's very important. I'll share how in a moment. Because there's another person who wrote something actually quite brilliant, especially if you're into org design like I am. This is Clay Parker Jones. He's director at Airbnb, leading an internal organization design capacity. So he's not a designer like we are. He's helping design the internal organization of Airbnb. And he was talking about the implications of AI, not just in kind of product design work, but what he's seeing throughout the organization. And very simply, he has this concept of we need to get past this concept of role clarity. So for too long, we have all been obsessed with, I'm a designer, what is my job, how do I grow in my career as a designer, or as a product manager, or as an engineer, or as a researcher. And he's like, we got to get away from that. Role clarity is old news. That's frankly almost like industrial age thinking. And instead move to team clarity, which we as, what I witness is most companies are actually really bad at this. Getting a group of people in a room and giving them clear goals and a sense of what it is that they're meant to accomplish. Right, so when you optimize for role clarity, everybody thinks only about themselves and what they need to do in order to kind of excel or exceed, in their role. When you shift it to team clarity, you're now helping a group of people figure out how they can achieve something together. I'm pausing because I'm realizing, and I might not go there, but it's rare that I'm speaking with a crowd that almost probably all understands the sport of basketball. Even in the United States, that's not necessarily true, right? But if you think about positionless basketball now, you don't need 1 through 5, and the point guard only does X, and the shooting guard only does Y, and et cetera, et cetera. You have Wimby, who's 7'5", who's a center, who shoots threes and has guard skills or whatever, right? We're moving to a world like that, where it's about skills, not about the predefined roles that we have inherited. And so to get the team right, you need to be thinking about what are the skills that you need a team to have in order to do something within your organization. This is just a laundry list of primarily design skills and professional skills, but there will be other ones. Given, if you were about a product organization, you're going to need technical skills, you're going to need more business skills, you're going to need maybe marketing skills, all kinds of skills. But they're not roles, right? We need to decouple this concept, this idea of skills and roles, right? You need to get the skills right, and then you need to give people purpose. I'm not going to read these statements. I will be here all night, but these are all purpose statements that I have helped teams, design teams in this case, develop in order to get a sense of what it is they're trying to accomplish as a design team. And with purpose statements and skills, you almost don't need roles, or you need to be thinking about roles as much. You just need to get the right 4 to 7 people in a room with the complement of skills that are necessary in order to get whatever that purpose is accomplished. Right? This is what we're moving towards. It's going to be hard. We all operate within, especially any organization that's at scale, within a bureaucracy, and bureaucracies love roles. They love them so much. They're built on roles. And so we don't have time to unpack that, but I recognize the challenges of what I'm saying. But it feels like something is going to break, or it has got to break because of the AI tools that we're all adopting. Okay. Pivot. So first was teams. Now we're going to talk about something that they touched on in the last talk, but didn't want to go too far in, which is quality. So how do different functions determine what good is? Well, engineering has very clear definitions of good, right? Percentage uptime, speed, number of bugs, code maintainability. Product will have some clear definitions of good, requirements met, on-time delivery, conversion rate, KPIs, OKRs. Design's definition of good, I know it when I see it, right? Most design teams do not have a clear standard of quality, or if they do, they've kind of borrowed products and called it a day. And that won't win any arguments, right? One of the challenges that is going to only accelerate, this was a pre-AI challenge, but it's only going to accelerate, is when designers think that something's not ready to ship, but they don't have a clear way to articulate why. And engineering's like, well, it meets our definition of quality, and products like it meets our definition of quality. That thing's going to ship if designers aren't creating a clear definition of quality. I'm going to speed run through this. I'm going to speed run through a framework in a moment. But before then, the value of a shared understanding of quality. There's 2 main values. One is for your team, right? I talk to design leaders who are frustrated that their teams aren't doing good work, and then when I ask them, well, how have you defined good work so that your team knows what good looks like, they look at me like I have 2 heads, but because they think everyone knows what good is. That's not true. Good is subjective, good is relative, good is situational and contextual. So you have to define good in your organization. There's no universal good for design. So you have that explicit understanding, you set expectations that can be upheld, and it provides coherence within the design team. But as I was also saying earlier, you now can have a shared understanding with your partners. It'll give you more authority for go, no go, if you have clear standards of quality, and you can use standards of quality as a way to educate your partners on the potential of design and how much more it could offer than what they probably think of. So quality standards framework, this is what I'm going to speed run. There's a lot of content here, and I have even more slides, and I don't want us to be here till, I don't know, 10 o'clock. So the framework starts with foundations, then experience, outcome, and identity. And there's a logic to this that I'll share at the end. But you start with foundations, and foundations are about as close as we get to kind of accepted, somewhat universal kind of engineering quality-like standards. Things like heuristics, right? Jacobs usability heuristics, they've been around for 30 years, they're still good. They work. There's no reason, if you're not doing heuristic evaluations of your tools, you're doing it wrong. You just start doing them. There's a process called PURE, which is a way to scorecard heuristic evaluations. You can find out more actually on the NN Group website. So you can turn heuristic evals into a number, makes it easier to communicate, makes it easier to use it as a benchmark. But also, and then accessibility, right? That's also something that is pretty easy to assess. There's a ton of tools out there that will tell you how accessible your stuff is. So that provides a foundation. Now, that is a very bare foundation. There's so much more to design than that, including the quality of the experience, and there are a few aspects of that. Self-reported and attitudinal. This is, giving people surveys after they do something and finding out how that experience was. System usability scale. Are folks familiar with SUS, system usability scale? A few hands. This has been around for 40 years. I had dismissed it probably 10 to 20 years ago. But in the last 5 years, I have worked with more teams using SUS than in like my prior career altogether, and using it as a way to communicate to others the quality of the experience. And because it's been around so long, it's like a junior NPS. There's a lot of tools for it. There's standards. You can benchmark against other experiences and know how well you're doing. It's better than NPS in terms that I think it actually delivers value. I'll shit on NPS all day long and twice on Sunday. Just playing for cheap laughs now. But because it's being so broadly used, it has a certain weight that I think can be successful. It is a 10-question survey. It can be a bit much. UX is a 4-question survey, lighter weight alternative. My point is, ask folks how that experience was. Again, no one of these is sufficient, but all together they produce, I think, a pretty holistic understanding of your experience. So you have self-reported and attitudinal, and then kind of obviously behavioral. Usability, right? Are people able to do the thing that you want them to do? Error rate, accuracy, time on task, task completion rate, right? These are all scoreable measures that can help you understand how the experience is working for folks. And then, there we go. Experience principles, right? This is where we start getting a little more subjective as designers, right? Many of you are probably using experience principles. This is an example from a recent client that I had, where you have, their ultimate desired outcome is to eliminate friction. The principles, or in this we're calling them standards, are these things in the green boxes. Stay a step ahead. Minimize burden through directness and clarity. Obsess over the ecosystem. Maintain continuity across channels and context. You all probably have some similar types of principles for experiences you're delivering. But then for each principle, we identified a set of measures that would tell us that we're achieving that principle. Right? And this is in an early stage, so we wouldn't use all 5 necessarily. We were kind of brainstorming, spitballing a bit to figure out how we might know that we are hitting those principles to ultimately deliver on that outcome. Right? But you want that degree of rigor. Speaking of outcomes, one of the challenges we have is teams are expected to deliver business outcomes. And there's a great article, a URL here, Empower Teams with Product Outcomes, Not Business Outcomes. If you are being asked, or the product team you're on are being asked to deliver on these bullet points, you're being asked to do the wrong thing. These are business outcomes, they're lagging indicators. The only way your team is going to be able to directly address this is usually through deceptive patterns and other kind of like weird gaming of interfaces to get people to click things. What instead you want to do is focus on product outcomes, right? Measuring human behavior, but specific to to the product, right? So those product OKRs I mentioned earlier, adoption, I think, do they? Yeah, adoption, retention, satisfaction, engagement, efficiency. These are the kinds of things that are product outcomes that will suggest that if you get to that, you'll then ultimately get to these business outcomes. Anyways, this article, this is the one article I cite more than any other across all of the leadership coaching I do. It comes, Product Talk. So if you're familiar with Teresa Torres, the continuous product discovery, she didn't write this article, but it's on her website. And then, not to be forgotten, we are a bunch of designers, including marketing designers, and identity and brand matters, and I think is an aspect of quality that's overlooked within product and user experience teams. But if you think about particularly a competitive product category, what happens is things like foundation, experience, and even outcomes, they're going to be very similar in a category. I'm just going to skip ahead. Imagine AI, right? ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, that basic at least kind of chat interface or whatever, that's all going to start to become the same. They all want the same outcomes, foundations, experience, and outcomes-wise. Right? And so it becomes identity, which starts being an important distinction between these tools. And as designers, I think a measure of quality is, are you clearly kind of delivering on an identity? So people have some type of relationship with it, whether it's the AI tools or language learning tools, Duolingo, Babbel, Rosetta Stone, these some SaaS tools and how they might compete, MailChimp, Kit, and HubSpot. There's not a lot written on brand and product design. Alana Gurney, who used to be at IDEO and I think is independent now, wrote some stuff a few years ago that's pretty good. But brand and identity become important. But so this kind of order and organization, I've taught quality stuff for 5 or 6 years now, but this format I developed earlier this year after having a conversation with Hong Zhu. She's the head of product experience for Adyen. She's based in Chicago. And she shared with me a framework very similar to this. And the philosophy was, what can you all control as designers? And then what are you having to share control over, right? And that's what this order is. So these foundations, these are things you own completely. You just go do it. You can do it Monday or tomorrow. You don't need instrumentation. You don't need permission. Just start doing it. Experience, okay, you're doing a SUS or you're doing some type of usability thing. Now you need to instrument stuff. You need to add a survey. You need to make sure that you're getting click data or whatever in order to understand how people are using it. Outcome, now you're kind of going outside your control. This is something that's going to be shared with product and potentially other teams. And then finally, identity is the most out of your control, because once you start getting to brand and identity, you start executives who you've never heard of start getting very interested in your work because it reflects on the business that they're part of. And so the idea behind this is like a rollout plan. But when I was talking to Hong about this, I don't believe any of my product partners or engineering partners will be happy if I just say, yeah, the user experience sucks, without me actually saying, if we don't fix it, then you're not going to hit the success metrics that you defined earlier for this product, right? So I started talking a lot about quality since the beginning of the year because of the threat of AI slop. I'll talk over that. I'll eat the microphone. Because of the threat of AI slop, right? There's the risk is it's so easy to make with AI. You're just going to make a bunch of crap with AI. And if you don't have standards of quality, we don't have a mechanism by which to stop the flood of crap, right? And so we need to make clear organization-wide standards of quality so that when the crap doesn't meet that quality, it doesn't ship, right? Because a lot of crap is going to be built that engineering and product or whomever, marketing even, whatever, are going to be like, yeah, it's fine for us. It meets our things. And so if we're trying to keep a higher bar, it's up to us to be very explicit and intentional about where that bar is set. Okay. I'm not going to bore you with this. This is already taking too long. This is brilliant, though. Oh my God, you wish I was talking you through this. Design quality management cascade. Yeah. I'm just gonna move on. I'm gonna move on from this too. No, there's more. There's more. We want to have a conversation too. This is something I'll touch on very quickly. This is stuff I've been advocating for pre-AI. But again, when we're talking conditions, I think it's interesting to think about. In an environment that is going to do good work, your conditions need to enable that work. And from what I've seen, at least when it comes to design, these three are crucial. The most crucial is psychological safety. It's basically non-negotiable. If you want designers and product teams to do good work, you need to create a psychologically safe space where a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes, and that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. Designers, we should be trying stuff, throwing things against the wall, experimenting, prototyping, knowing that 90% of what we're sketching is bad, and that's okay. We got to get those ideas out to get to the 10% that are gold. But if in that 90% bad, other people start saying, oh, that's bad work, you're doing bad work, that's not right, now we're going to hold on to it. We're only going to do stuff that's safe. We're not going to innovate. We're not going to push boundaries. Right? You need psychological safety to provide that. Autonomy. People want control of their work. That's a real interesting challenge right now. Right? They want to retain that sense of ownership. They don't want to be told what to do. They want to be told, achieve this. You figure out how to get there. But when you get executive mandates that 20% of your work must use tools, whether or not it's relevant to you or whatever, like now you're taking autonomy away from folks, and that's demotivating. And then mastery is going to be a really interesting challenge right now, right? Mastery, craft, practice. What does that mean? Mihai Csikszentmihalyi wrote a book called Flow, where he recognized that people seek to work at or just above their level of skill mastery. If they're too far below, right? If they're a senior staff principal designer, but they're doing onboarding flows, they're going to disengage. They're like, I've been doing onboarding flows for 15 years. When do I? That's not interesting to me. But if they're a junior designer who's thrust into the middle of a product team, a product design and engineering team, with a senior product manager and senior engineers, they're going to get overwhelmed in kind of the other capacity. They're just going to do what they're told, which is also disengaging. Even pre-AI, most agile practices neutered this concept of mastery, right? Because we took an individual, we put them in this team, and if they were senior, they had to do scut work. They had to do this basic work, and that was frustrating to them. And if they were junior, they were overwhelmed. There should never be a lone designer working like with just some product people and engineers. We can talk about that in conversation. So I skipped a bunch of business value stuff just for time, but I wanted to share this story because Amy Loki was a guest on our podcast, and she said stuff that I was like, oh, okay, interesting, about why her team is able to lead AI initiatives at ServiceNow. So CXO at ServiceNow, she's been there 6 or 7 years now, like true kind of C-suite type person, rare for a chief design officer to actually be in the C-suite. And we interviewed her for our podcast, and I was asking her, I forget exactly what the question was, but she responded with this quote that as she was saying it, I started visualizing what I'm about to show you. We can track our user insights. We can tie them to the design artifacts that show we're fixing the thing. We can attach that to a PRD and then, the epics and stories, and we can show this connective tissue of, hey, when we released the thing that solved that user insight, we actually saw a decrease in customer issues related to that particular thing. Right? So she can tie the whole story together and then, play it back. This gave her a crap ton of credibility at ServiceNow, that what her team was doing was delivering business value because she could tie that whole story together. And what that let her do was, she was one of the people using SUS. I didn't, unprompted, she just talks about SUS and how SUS helped her, demonstrate the quality of the experiences that they were delivering. So she built this UX quality measurement system using SUS and critical user journeys. She's ex-Google, and it's a Google process. I had never heard of it before. You can Google or otherwise search critical user journeys to learn more about them. Ran it semi-annually across products, moved those SUS scores from 50 to the 90s, and that earned this seat in the quarterly executive product reviews. And then what happened is they started applying that to AI, anyways, they started driving a lot of the AI work happening at ServiceNow as being driven by design because she had shown that her team was here to support the business, right? And she'd earned that credibility and trust, and so now her team was helped put in charge of that. Okay, no, sorry, I forgot. No, go back. Well, oops, sorry. I didn't realize what was back and what was forward. Quickly, 3 kinds of power in organizations. Positional, you're the boss, you get to tell everybody what to do. Expertise, you're someone who knows things and people listen to you because you know something that people think is important. Relational, you just bring people along. You make connections with your colleagues and you bring people along. When we think of power in organizations, we tend to overweight positional. We think the boss just tells people what to do and that's what matters. When in fact, the most important usually is relational power. When I teach my leadership workshop, we spend a lot of time talking about how do you build these relationships with people in your organization so that you can bring them along towards your agenda. But, and expertise power is where UX often lives, but in things like, we did all this research with users and we know what they want and we're gonna tell you. And then we wonder why, but then no one cares. But we're like, but no, I know things. And they're like, yeah, but I don't care. And we overestimate as UXers the importance of our typical expertise around user insights and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't tend to move the needle. But we are in a moment, in an AI moment, where expertise, there's this window, as we were hearing about, expertise matters. And one of the, as part of my listening tour, there's an executive at a tech-forward company, design team of about 40 or 50, and she talked about how design is actually leading, where product could be leading. I think there were more people in the product organization that were behind on AI adoption than in the design organization, so we did their job for them, because they were more bystanders than using it to drive strategy themselves. That has helped design be very upstream at the moment and take a lot of leading roles, right? So designers who are embracing these tools and technologies and using them to get ahead there's this phrase at the top, who controls the prompt controls the product, that comes from my podcast partner, Jesse. He's been doing a lot of work in AI transformation, right? So, it's kind of incumbent upon you to get comfortable with these tools, to use these tools to demonstrate that expertise, and in doing so, in this chaotic moment, you can stand out as someone to be listened to. Okay. A few more slides. This is going to be a bit of this is where it gets very grab baggy. I just threw some slides towards the end of this presentation to hit some themes that I've been hearing. It was actually with that same executive, and we saw the double diamond earlier. Something that she pointed out to me is that in her organization, there are 2 types of people who are loving AI. And we use the double diamond as a way to kind of talk about it. One were the strategists, the people kind of up here, loving AI, getting to prototype, vision type, future experiences 6, 12, 18 months down the line with real data, put that in front of users, get a sense of how they would use it, iterate, right? They're happy because not only can they do this, but they can also start kind of doing it in a way that looks and feels real, right? Without having to bug designers to make it happen. And then the other folks who were loving it were the people at the back half of the second diamond, who were designers who also maybe were coders or wanted to be closer to code, but always had to have a handoff, and there was always a kind of awkwardness with engineering. Now they're just partnering with engineering and making sure that the stuff that's getting shipped is what was specified and what was designed. So there were these 2 audiences that were having a great time, and then a third audience that was trying to figure out just what their role was, right? Their purpose was, because they were getting pinched on both sides. So I don't have much to say about it beyond recognizing this is a trend, at least this person was seeing. I've shared it with others. I've heard, as I've shared it with other kind of leaders, they're seeing something similar, that like your classic workflow and wireframe UXer is feeling a little lost because people are coming at their work from both sides. So we talked a little bit about quality. I wrote an article on how one of the issues that we have in our industry, well, let me explain. So back in ye olden web times when we were starting Adaptive Path, the quality curve, the bell curve of quality was quite spread out, probably mostly on the bad side. Anyone old enough to remember user experiences on the web in the late 90s and early 2000s? A lot of them sucked. But there were also people doing some really interesting, crazy stuff, interesting stuff, pushing boundaries. Early Flickr, I was thinking about, or Etsy when it started, doing some like kind of really interesting and useful, not just like weird, pushing of kind of what these kind of user experience and user interfaces experiences could be. But what's happened over time is that, you know, starting about 2015, 2016 to today, we raised the floor, so you have far fewer truly bad experiences, right? All of you are using some mobile banking app, and it probably does its job just fine. And you know, that's this, right? We've raised the floor so that we can kind of get a lot of the basics done. But I think we've also lowered the ceiling. And what's happened is a lot of design has turned into production in the last 10 years or so. We confused the creation of screens with the work of design, which is for folks who maybe listening to the prior presentation or, you know, concerned about their jobs. If you're concerned about your jobs because you thought your job was being good at Figma and delivering screens to engineers, yeah, you probably should be concerned about your job, because that's not really design, that's production. Nothing against production, but it's the thing that the tools, AI does really well, right? And so we need to, the opportunity is to have a more expansive view of design again, kind of hearkening back to when we were all figuring this stuff out 20-some years ago. Anyway, so that's another trend. What else do I got? Okay, sorry about that, some font issues, but a couple of quotes from, so Jesse and I did an episode, just he and I talking about AI transformation. And just a couple things. Oh yeah, this, I forgot to change the typeface on this. It's okay. An opportunity for design right now, kind of based on what I was just saying about, let's not be production people anymore. Let's not have our value being in generating screens to keep engineers busy. That should never have been our value, but it became our value, but let's move past that. So let's clarify what our value proposition is, right? Each of us, when I mentioned actually earlier the team clarity concept from Clay Parker Jones, right? Teams need to have a really clear understanding of the value that they are delivering and to communicate that value, but not only clarify it, expand it, right? We have an opportunity right now with all the confusion going on to reframe the value of design. Does this tool support the value we already deliver, or does it let us deliver value we never could before? What is that value that you knew you should be delivering, but you couldn't for whatever reason? How might these tools enable that? And I think, yeah. So with that, thank you.
Incredible. Thank you very much, Peter.
Maybe 10 minutes so that I don't want to go much past 8:30. I want you all to have a chance to talk to each other.
Yeah.
It's weird that this turned into a lecture, but anyway.
It was great, but we have time for questions. So hands up, folks.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Here we go.
There we go.
Right here up front.
Maybe
Maybe I have a little bit different question, but I'm just very curious about your podcast that you're doing. Can you tell a little bit what is it about?
Sure. So the podcast is Finding Our Way. I co-host it with Jesse James Garrett. So he and I were two of the 7 founders of Adaptive Path. So I've been working with him for over 25 years now. We started the podcast just pre-pandemic, so 6-7 years ago. And it's a podcast about design and design leadership. So it started with him and I just talking to each other, catching up because we hadn't worked together for so long. And then, as this suggests, we started interviewing usually design leaders, though others as well, like Paul Ford, Dave Gray we've had on recently. Teresa Torres actually was an excellent guest on our podcast. And we've just turned it into, and it's about design and design leadership and the challenges. We've been doing a lot on AI in the last year, as you might imagine, just kind of how to navigate kind of what's going on out there. So that's the podcast. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, thank you. It's very interesting.
We got, excellent.
Hi, hello. I wanted to ask regarding leadership question. So
you know your boss is right there.
It's not the first time. So I wanted to ask, we touched upon that bit with Giedrius about shared responsibility of bringing AI into the organizations, both from bottom up to top down. Could you share a bit more? You shared a bit. You had one slide about that, about what should be the responsibilities of those leads. I'm talking more about people leaders.
Yep.
In this case, as a staff, we're also part of leadership, but I'm more talking about from people leaders' perspective. How can they bring this, change? Should they bring this change? How organizations could check and help, those leaders to bring that change to their individual contributors?
So a focus on the conditions, right? As you also said, those 3 that I mentioned when I was talking about conditions for quality work, psychological safety being the most paramount, autonomy and mastery, just making sure that those are in place and being valued and being respected. Autonomy in particular, I think, is important. It's kind of a double-edged sword because you want to give people the autonomy to figure out how to solve the problem in front of them instead of telling them what to do, right? But as we also see, there's so many tools right now. If you kind of rely too much on autonomy, you're going to overwhelm people. And so something that I wrote about and that I believe is typically invested in is design operations. So the one person that I quoted, who is really in it to win it, Z from Cloudflare, she's a design operations person, not an executive or other leader. And the kind of transformation that we're trying to put in place when it comes to AI and design is primarily an operational challenge, right? When you have 28, 35, 52 tools and you're trying to make sense of it, right? Instead of asking everybody to figure it out on their own, having an operational person, say this team is going to try these 2 or 3 tools, that team, those 2 or 3 tools, spread them out, but in a coordinated fashion. And then each team, as they learn, you bring that learning back to the center, you then farm that out. One team figures this set of tools works so well for us. Now we can spread that throughout the organization, right? But that's an operational effort because it's about, operations is about ways of working, and these tools are largely about ways of working, right? And so I think it's been unfortunate that we've seen this reduction in design operations as companies have been laying off, and operators, they're not shipping, so we don't need them. We need them more than ever right now to help coordinate this type of effort and bring people along, training, just all the planning around it, the communication, all of that stuff. So I'd say invest in operations. There was another, what can leaders do? to the degree possible, discourage burnout. If you talk to, well, so I've been talking to leaders, they're all burned out because what you guys said earlier is true, right? Leaders should also get some familiarity with these tools so they know what their capabilities are. But one of the things, one of the people that I interviewed was like, I've never really designed in Figma, much less like AI tools. Like he became a design executive when Sketch was still kind of, like Sketch was the last tool he used. And then Figma came in and he's like, yeah, I'll go in and I'll comment, but I'm not like auto layout. I never understood it, right? But leaders like that are now like, do I have to learn Lovable and Cursor and Magic Path and Pencil and all, like, maybe, right? You need to know enough to be able to have a credible kind of conversation around it. Do you need to be facile in all of those tools? Probably not as a leader, right? But do you need to create a space that allows the teams to figure out what is the tool set and how are you going to string them together to produce value? Yes. Do you need to have an understanding of how design works? Yes, totally, right? You can't wash your hands of process, right? What are the inputs and outputs that are going to lead to good design? You need to have a point of view in that. Actually, I think, so I skipped the quality management cascade. Just type design quality management cascade into your favorite search engine and you'll see some stuff I've written about it. Something else that the leaders need to do, an executive needs to do, Jonas in this case needs to do for Vinted, is define quality, right? That is the executive's responsibility to make sure that it's happening. They don't have to sit there and write the Confluence docs or the Notion docs of what quality is, but they need to make sure that that is happening, right? It's incumbent upon the executives to make sure that everybody has a shared understanding of quality. So that would be another thing I would add to that. I'll stop monologuing now. We have one over here, one there, so we'll do this and then we'll come over there.
Thank you, Peter. From designer perspective, you mentioned that AI solves the production part, right? And now we can focus on delivering a better value.
Yes.
What is that, the better value? You know, is it business acumen? Is it knowing better your users? What it is?
Yes is the short answer to that question, right? It's for me, I think it's a lot more of the first diamond type stuff, right? What should we be building? Why are we building it? What are things that we haven't even thought of? Like, what are the, I think we've gotten, so we haven't been as exploratory, right? When I had that big bell curve, right? You can have that big bell curve because there's a lot of exploration happening, right, on the good side. We've lost that exploratory mindset in favor of kind of known solutions to kind of similar problems, right? And so one of the things that's happened, I won't name specific names, but there's a company in the United States, an online news kind of paper news service that had a new chief design officer, and that chief design officer was tasked with what is a vision of a future mobile experience 2-3 years from now. And he knew he wasn't going to be the one to deliver it. He was running the org. But when he looked around his org, he realized no one in the team knew how to do that kind of design work, knew how to do farther vision work, right? It's a different kind of design than kind of the next iteration of your current product. So he had to bring in an outside consultant who had done that kind of work before and understands how to do vision types and that kind of thing, right? And so I'm sharing that specifically. And then he came in, they did the work, and now that future of mobile work has become the many-year roadmap that this company is executing against. And so I think an opportunity is when you're not doing the production to be thinking more broadly, more expansively on what are the problems that your organization can be solving. You also mentioned business acumen. Yes, right? Because you're going to need to be able to communicate why these interesting new ideas are right for your business, which means a little bit of, that's why I showed the Amy Loki thing, right? Being able to connect insights that you have to impact, right? And designers tend not to be good at kind of stringing all of that together. So those kinds of things. There was a hand raised all the way over there. You got to run.
Thank you. So I tried to condense this question into as a concise thing as possible. Let's see if I made it. But so, and I'm blanking out.
Okay.
Basically, my question is, you're suggesting that it's possible to compress design into measurable metrics, into something that your team can measure and be graded at, just for the wellness of the company. As soon as you do that, what if one of the engineers like myself comes up and says like, hey, let's attach that to AI, let's make it run autonomously, let's make it, let's add more stress to your team. Didn't you just create another burnout loop by doing that?
So you, this is where you need a healthy corporate culture. Right, because any time, it's not just about measuring design, it's about what you're saying would be true for any benchmarking and measuring of anything. For me, we can have a philosophical discussion about turning things into numbers. There's an excellent book that recently came out called The Score, about how what happens when you measure everything and then you start working to those metrics and you lose sight of all that makes us happy in the world. So, I recognize some of the challenges with metrics, but I also recognize that businesses communicate through them, right? And one of the challenges designers face is when they try to communicate with design language to a business audience that's like, I don't understand what you mean by feel, right? That's not meaningful to me, but they do understand what you mean by scores and sus and benchmarks and time on task or whatever it is, right? And so for me, it's a matter of using the metrics as a way to have a shared dialogue, an ability to connect what your team is doing with other teams. Could it be used in a way to, I guess, stress or burnout, or I suppose I hadn't gotten that far in the thinking, because frankly, designers are usually just so bad with metrics that we first we need to kind of get to the a metric space to then be able to, I think, have a good conversation about how do we use those metrics in a healthy way and not in a this is that kind of amplification, right? If you've got a healthy set of conditions and you're amplifying that, great. But if you've got a toxic set of conditions and you're amplifying that, then yes, you're going to lead to burnout. Frankly, regardless of whether or not we're measuring design output. So I didn't quite answer your question, partly because I haven't thought enough about it to that extent to know what the implications are. But you see like just the dumbest shit with like leaderboards for token maxing. Like, that's like telling engineers you should write more lines of code. We know that that's dumb, but we're like bringing back these old bad ways of measuring performance and productivity. And that's not about the measurement, that's about the stupidity of that measure. We need to be focused on outcomes, not output. And businesses just need to keep relearning that. I don't have much more to say.
Thank you.
What do you think, Jonas? Should we stop or one more? Or?
Let's do one more.
Okay.
We have.
Whoa! Now, everybody. How about let's hear from someone, with different chromosomal makeup. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be good. First off, I just wanted to say that I think it's wonderful that you came to Vilnius. I moved to this country 4 years ago from America, and I love it here. And so it's great.
Are you encouraging immigration? Is that it?
Yeah, I want it out, so I get it. So I've been in leadership roles in content design, and I was really taken by your portion of your presentation about changing from roles to team dynamics and that relational power. But, with all these advanced changes, companies are not necessarily like do as I say, not as I do kind of a thing. So a lot of my work, I talk with future leaders and people that want to move into that. How can people progress that vision of moving into team-oriented, where the roles are blurring and people have opportunities to lead teams that they previously hadn't in the past? How can we help them to improve that?
That's an excellent question. You know, I'm one of the reasons I shared some of this stuff is, you know, there's good writing happening about it. Maybe that will have some impact. You know, if Airbnb is doing it, you know, like some models like that, like, okay, it's worth considering. Typically, so essentially what we're talking about is some flavor of change management, right? We have a current way of being. We want to operate in some new ways. We have a sense of what those new ways are, right? We want to move away from every team must have a designer and a content designer and a user researcher and product manager and n number of engineers too. We want to have a group of people with the right complement of skills. You know, as a writer, as a designer, I've always been a good writer, so I can kind of play a content writer or content designer, content strategist point of view. I'm a shitty visual designer, right? So like, that's not a skill I bring. I would need someone with visual design skills. Maybe that person with visual design skills also has some front-end development skills, right? Like, so yeah, they're not a front-end developer. Again, that's what I mean by like, roles were already a poor way to explain what it is any individual does, because we are messier than our job description. And so when you have that understanding of like, what would it be like if we just got a team together with the right spread of skills and a purpose and set them off? In a change management mode, the way you do that is by starting small, right? Find some part of the organization where there's some opportunity. Maybe it's, I wouldn't say marginal, but it's not like mission critical, but of interest to the organization, a little innovation team or something like that. And propose, hey, let's try a different way of working, right? These tools are supposedly blurring roles. Let's embrace that. Let's see what it looks like when we just get a group of folks together, get them working together as a team with these tools, and see what happens, right? Like you start small, you demonstrate that, oh, it didn't break when we didn't have the right, you know, the standard, you know, product team makeup. They were still able to do great stuff. Okay, let's try that again, or let's try it with a different group of people. Like it's just you start small and you build from there. I recognize that particular kind of change is going to be a very long time to realize. In the article that I wrote about this, because I've been fighting against roles for like 20 years. At Adaptive Path, we tried to call everybody experienced designer and stuff like that. Like whether you had more research skills or visual skills or IA skills or whatever, we're just all experienced designers. One of the reasons we weren't able to do that then was, you know, it wasn't bureaucracy. We were 30 some people, right? So we could do what we wanted. But it was identity. Folks are like, no, I have a PhD in social science, or I went to SCAD and got my degree in service design. I am a service designer, right? So identity is actually a big issue. And one of the things that, a sub-thread of all of this is identity. Identity has done more to hold designers, and I mean that broadly, UXers, let's say. Identity has done more to hold UXers back than anything anyone else did to UXers, right? Oh, I don't do that, that's not my job. I'm an X, right? That's identity. That's holding tight to this sense of professional affiliation that doesn't really speak to the impact you want to have. So start small, get a group together, let go of that no ego thing from that story from Alex. Try to let go of egos, let go of I am an X, so I do X, Y, Z. You're a, so you do A, B, C, and instead, like, again, I'm going to use the basketball analogy, right? You're a group of 5 people just trying to score more points than the other team, right, and prevent them from scoring points on you. However those 5 people can achieve that goal is what's best, and it's going to be different for every group of 5 people, right? So how does that mindset apply in an organization like that? hopefully something like that. You know, I haven't had a lot of opportunity to kind of trial this. I know how it should work, but you know, it's going to take a bit. We're starting to see it. I mean, I think even some of the experiments here, right? You're seeing teams just kind of blur and just get, you know, on those various, I don't know if those are PRDs or whatever you're showing. Yes, they all have titles, but you get the sense that there's 6 people just like working together in new ways trying to figure this out. I don't know if you do you want to add anything to that? You're shaking your, nodding your head vigorously.
So I think one of the things we talked about, the agentic experience that we built, we were working with PM, essentially 2 of us on this thing. The interesting part that I took outside of this exercise, and now we are talking on the next thing, and the first thing he said, you know, Giedrius, come and work on this with me now. And I said, do you need a designer? No, I need someone that builds the stuff with me. And I think this is the change. Like, you are reaching the goal faster, not because you are doing one or another thing, but because you are working together. I think this is the biggest change.
Excellent question. Should we wrap up there? I'm seeing people drift out. I know it's a little late, so
it's getting late, but it has been absolutely incredible. Thank you, Peter.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
And thank you all for showing up. I want to thank Giedrius and Mantas for amazing talk as well. We still have some drinks and food, so stay.
How late can people stay until?
9. Let's do an hour.
About an hour. Hang out for an hour.
9:40. And then let's see.